use explicit violence in your writings?
It's what I do, is one answer. I write horror fiction. There is a kind of curiosity that we have as human beings about our life processes. One of our last life processes is death. It's a legitimate subject for curiosity. We shouldn't be ashamed that the macabre or the morbid exercises some fascination upon us. I tell it like it is. If it's there in my mind's eye, I put it on the page. And that seems to me to be a legitimate way to write.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Written in Red podcast. That is the Horror Reader and Writers podcast. I am here, Splatterpunk Award nominated horror author Aaron Beauregard, of such works as Scary Bastard, Yellow, Try the New Candy, Dark Assembly. I got a book, In the Hands of the Heathens, coming out. Actually, it's probably out by the time this airs. And also, my co-hosts are along for the ride, and we have Carver Pike.
Hey everybody, Carver Pike here, Splatterpunk Award-nominated author for Slaughterbox, and I wrote the Diablo Snuff series and Grad Night and a handful of others.
And Daniel Volpe.
Hey everyone, Dan Volpe, author of Billy Silver, Awakened in Blood, and my newest book, Talia. And as requested by Brad Tierney, here's a little pee that he claims that I drink, so I'll just have a little swig of that for him.
Nothing like
Enjoy the show.
And next week, we'll bring you scat. All right.
Harvard, that's on you.
And Roland Bursey Jr.
Hey everybody, Roland Bursey Jr., author of Unbortion, winner of the 2020 American Fiction Awards, Payback is a Witch, and Pre-Thanksgiving Stress Disorder, which is going to be released solo sometime in November.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, we are the Written in Red podcast, and we're here to kind of, as you know, take you down your writing journey. However we can help. We don't have all the answers, but we're going to give you what we got. And if you listen to the initial 4 shows, you got to learn a little bit about each of us and some of our experiences and, motivators, I guess, right? Books that motivated us. And then more recently, we got right into the meat and potatoes of the show with our first real true episode of the content, Can I Write? Which explores the question of many of you ask yourselves when you're trying to figure out if this is something for you. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I strongly recommend that you go back, check that out, because today the name of the episode is I Have a Horrible Idea. And we're really going to be getting into, the concepts when you have, you think you got something worthy of filling up the pages. What should you do next? Where should you begin? We're going to talk about understanding your idea and fleshing it out, and like we're getting into writing right now, right? So that other episode is like we're sort of figuring that out. Now we're getting into it. And then the episode after that, we kind of did a bunch of mailbag stuff and talked about some bloggers and some folks in the community that are really helpful to us and that we just wanted to show our appreciation to. And we'll be continuing to spotlight authors as we release episodes, and that is no different than with today. So before we get into I Have a Horrible Idea, we will be asking our good friend...
You have to do a creepy laugh after that, man. You can't just... There you go.
We will be asking our good fellow co-host, Roland Bursey Jr., to talk a little bit about someone that he wanted to spotlight. What do you got for us, brother?
Alrighty. So recently I've read a couple of things. I'm sure you guys all know her. Rayne, and last name Havoc, if I'm saying that right. Rayne Havok. Yes. Amazing author. Brutal. I can't even explain how I felt when I was reading some of her stuff. But I read Killstream, and that's just freaky. The way she describes some of the scenes in this book just made parts of me crawl, and I won't say anything about it if you haven't read it. It's amazing. And then I also read Mukbang Princess, another wicked book. So if you haven't checked her out, I definitely would suggest you do so.
It's great. I'm seeing her stuff everywhere online too,
Yeah.
which is good. So I mean, there's definitely an interest outside of what we're discussing. I'm really happy to see it too. You know, I think I've heard so many good things. But what do you got to say, Carver?
I was just say she's funny as hell too, man. Because I made a post about reading Killstream, and I was just talking about the book and how fucking sick she is and twisted and stuff, and then she forwarded or whatever, shared my fucking post and put on there that one time that Carver Pike was obsessed with me and couldn't say enough about it, which is funny. I don't know. She's got a cool sense of humor.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I read Killstream too, and that's kind of what I put in my post was like, I guess I haven't really read a lot of extreme horror for writing some of it myself. I haven't read Mother Maggot yet, and I know I need to. And so I was reading Rayne's, and I would say I got to about the 30%, and it's a short book, but I got to only about 30% of it, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I was reading it, and I was like, I can't really say much because do you know what I'm talking about, Roland? Like I can't say much because I don't want to give the story away. But I was reading it and I was like, I feel bad. I feel like I don't know what to say without giving the story away. But I just felt like I was going down a path I wasn't sure I was ready to go down. You know what I mean? And I'm glad I pushed through it. Like I kind of muscled through it because then it was killer, man. Like the twist and stuff. I mean, just the story itself is really brutal and it's an awesome story. And I'm glad I kind of pushed through it because I almost was like, damn, I don't know. But it was pretty cool, man. She's a good writer. I like Rayne stuff. So and I picked up I don't know how to, is it mukbang? What'd you say, mukbang?
Mukbang.
Or mukbang or whatever. I got that one too. I just haven't started reading it yet. So
Yeah, that one's sick. Rayne is definitely, she's definitely a nice person. I've talked to her a few times. She's beta read a few things for me, and recently I bought both of her collecting Rayne collections that she has. So there's 1 and 2 that are out right now, and these are great. They're really nice quality. And if you look on the back here, this is pretty much the table of contents.
So
it has
some of the stories that you can buy separately, or are they totally different? Like I just saw.
No,
they're all the. Let me see on my camera here. They're all her stories. So that's the collection. Part 1, My Christmas Story, The Boy, Degenerate, Devour, Retaliation, Triple X, App, The Embalmer. Then you have Volume 2 here, and here's the back of Volume 2. Another great collection. Boys Will Be Boys, a really fucked up story. The Other Place, Tantalize, Killstream is in here. Daddy Issues and Necrosis.
Her new one, Furry Beaver, just the name, just kind of.
Yeah.
And the way it looks like, it kind of looks like the Looney Tunes like symbol and shit. It says Furry Beaver, but I have a feeling it's not anything like Looney Tunes, you know?
I don't think so. She's been doing a lot of good stuff on godless.com with those the shorter stories. Like Mukbang Princess there was a short one.
Yeah, she's doing
definitely
a lot of expensive stuff with them, right? So
yeah, definitely packed a punch. My first story that I read by her was The Embalmer, which is really, I mean, as is everything that she writes, it was pretty fucked up. There's some definitely some non-Christian things in there that happen, but she's a great writer. She's a great, reader, contributor to extreme horror, and she's just a all-around cool person. So if you guys haven't read Rayne Havok, then get on Amazon. Check her out, send her a friend request on Facebook, and annoy the shit out of her with stuff.
Yeah, she's so cool. I don't know if I'd invite her to like Thanksgiving dinner because I have a feeling it would turn into like a Would You Rather. Like, have you seen that movie Would You Rather where they're like sitting around, they think it's just like dinner and shit. And then I think Rayne put us all through the fucking ringer.
Like, why do you have fucking pruning shears?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude, she seems really cool. I've had a couple conversations with her via comment sort of stuff on Facebook. Really nice person, very engaging. I haven't read anything yet. I will. It sounds like Killstream is the way to go from what Carver and Roland have said. I'll be checking it out, guys. Probably try and post something on it too, and then. But you guys should, the listeners, if you guys are looking for something different, something that's hardcore, join the bandwagon, because it seems I'm seeing the book everywhere. Not just one book, like multiple books everywhere right now. So that's always a good sign. People embracing it.
If you read Killstream, you will never look at a sock the same way again.
Oh.
Yeah. She's got a great back catalog too. She's got a great catalog of stuff, so you're going to kind of fall down that rabbit hole, which is why I chose to get the collections, which I got signed, which she wrote me some very nice notes in here.
What's that say? Go find yourself? Is that what that says?
In sum and substance, it does say that, but no, she's awesome. We have a couple inside jokes, and she touched on some of them. So, but yeah, definitely go check her shit out.
And another good thing about her stuff is like the short stories are for us, especially for people who don't read often. But like you can fly through them. First of all, they're that engaging and that interesting. But then for them to be short, it's a perfect thing to pick up if you want to read something real fast and don't have time to commit to something longer.
Yeah, and what's good about her shorter stuff too is that it's on Godless. So Godless, you can control the price. So I think the majority of her really short stuff is like 50 cents.
50 cents, yeah.
So if you're lacking on your Goodreads goals for the year, you can get on there, spend $2 and knock out 4 things and build your Goodread file up a little bit, and they're great stories to read.
Yeah, definitely.
You'd be putting over an indie horror author, dude. I'm all for it.
Yes.
So.
2 thumbs up from Written in Red for Rayne Havok.
Yeah.
Come on, Carver.
There we go.
Yeah. He's on West Virginia internet, so we got to remember that.
I'm not drinking tonight either. I'm drinking water, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I'm not drinking either. Just crack for me tonight.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's get into the main topic for the day. And as we sort of transition here, I want to remind you guys, go ahead and subscribe to the Written in Red YouTube channel if you haven't. You can see our mugs on there if you want. You may be listening to this on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. Please subscribe there if you haven't already. And rating the podcast does definitely help us out. As we move forward, we're going to try and, hopefully find ways to generate some sort of income. That way we can, maybe do things to give back in different ways. And, that's just, that'll come as we proceed forward. We're episode 7 right now, right?
7.
So, yeah, it's going by fast.
Oh, it is, yeah.
But yeah, so guys, be sure to check us out there if you like the content, and subscribe. Now, we're on episode 7. I have a horrible idea, so this is when we're going to start to flesh it out, guys. So we have a few pretty interesting bullet points, and for those who have that idea and maybe listen to the Can I Write episode and you decided, yes, I can, now's the time. So I think where we're going to start first is sort of conceptualizing, right? Size matters. How big is your idea? So first you'll need to determine if you think the idea is a short story, a novella, or a novel-worthy idea. I mean, and this is not to say you can't just write and sort of let the story determine the length too, but sometimes it's nice to have a ballpark estimate, or like if you're saying, hey, I want to get into a collection, or I want to build a collection of multiple stories, or I want to release a novel, etc., right? So how did you guys kind of start? And do you have any recommendations for people that are, sort of launching off? Do you think, or do you not have an opinion either way? Do you think it doesn't matter if it's a novel or a short story?
I don't think it really matters. Like, I started writing when I was asked to be part of the Distended Table collection. It was supposed to be a short story, 2,000-3,000 words, and it wound up being 8, 9, 10,000. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
But know where I was going to stop or what the word count was going to be, or nor did I even think about it. Like, I just wanted to write it. So I think you just jump in and let the story dictate how long it's going to be, whether it's going to be a novel or a novella, you know?
Yeah. I started out writing short stories, and I kind of tried to set mine up almost like a 3-act structure, like in a play kind of. So I would do so basically I made sure I had 3 chapters. I knew each chapter was going to be somewhere around 3,000 words, and that would get me close to a 10,000 word story, like 10,000, something like that. But then I've had books like Grad Night, kids trying to get revenge on their teachers and stuff. I really thought that was going to be a short story. I wasn't expecting that to be a full-length novel. But then once I started writing it, it just kind of did its own thing. And that's actually one of my bigger books. I think that was like 90,000 or something like that. So 90,000 words. So it can go either way.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. Like, sometimes I'll get an idea, and some of the ideas tell me exactly, like, I know that this is going to be a short story. The one that I have coming up, the Cut Around the Ass, the one in the Evil Cookie anthology, I knew that was going to be a short story. I know you love that one.
I love that title.
I knew from the jump just the way it was going to be. It was designed to be a short story. I was writing for a purpose. But there have been other ones where I'll start off as a short story, and like you said, Carver, it kind of just takes over on itself, and it just grows organically. And then all of a sudden you're at, like Roland said, like 10, 15, 20,000 words, and you're no longer at a short story. You're at that novella, novelette kind of length. And
yeah,
kind of just like you said, let the story breathe. I like to outline some things too. So if I start outlining, I start adding more stuff. The characters kind of speak to you a little bit, where you're like, oh, this character, in order for him to do this, I might have to put another character in to get him to this spot, and then you have to worry about another character and their storyline. So it can kind of be an organic thing. Just kind of let it go. What about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of started with short stories first because I liked the idea of like finishing something, you know what I mean? And like being like, oh, cool, like this is done. Like, whereas if you're going to sit down, and I would recommend short story first just because you get a feeling of accomplishment. And with the way that you can publish now, it used to be before, digital books were there or anything, like you weren't going to publish a 50-page book. Like it's probably just not going to be something that's easy to do. But now if you wanted to make it, just publish something digitally small and just say, hey, I want to kind of go through the process, see what it's like. You can do that even if you got a short story, So it kind of just depends on what you want. But I think as far as maybe some like cues and clues to the writer, think about, is your story more storyline based or is it more character driven? If it's more character driven, then you're probably thinking novella or novel, only because, you're going to want to have a character arc. You're going to want to see them go through these different experiences. But if it's more just about, if you're more just inserting characters into the story to sort of get to the twist, to me, that's more like a short story, Yeah. Not, and that, and I'm sorry, just one more thing. That's not to say that, like, I don't try to put fleshed out characters into short stories. I do, but I feel like a lot of times they're more concept driven than character driven.
Yeah,
it's just how it seems.
That's what I was gonna say, was that like sometimes you can have a killer idea for like a scene. You're out and about somewhere and you're like, holy shit, what if this happened? What if the fucking Ferris wheel just fell down right now and just crushed everybody? Like, you know what I mean? And then you get down to write and you're like, that guy could come up with a 90,000 word story or even a 70,000 or 50. You know what I mean? Like, you might really just come out of that scene. And the good thing with short stories is you do get to jump right into the action much quicker, and of course there still needs to be a beginning, middle, and end, but you're not forced to draw it out and tell the backstory of all these characters and all, you know what I mean? So sometimes when you have just kind of a fast-paced, scene in your head, it helps to knock out a short story with it. So.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Go ahead,
short stories are definitely for somebody who's beginning, and I wrote short stories I mean, I still write short stories, but up until I wrote Billy Silver, that was my first longer horror novella that I did. So for forever, like you said, Aaron, the short stories give you that sense of accomplishment. And nowadays with the print on demand and, you know, sites like Amazon and Godless, where you're able to get your stuff out there immediately, essentially. And if you do have a 10,000 word story, you can print a 50-page book or so.
Okay.
So for somebody who's new, beginning out with their writing career or just enjoying it, short stories are definitely a great way to start off, just to get that accomplishment and get your name on something.
Yeah.
I agree.
Carver, you all right? You look like you're in the Matrix.
Am I all fucked up again? My screen?
No, you're handsome.
Oh man.
We can still kind of hear you.
Hey, I was gonna actually say that, you know, short stories too, they're not necessarily easier. Sometimes they're hard, man, writing a short. Can you guys hear me? Because I see Aaron's like talking and I can't hear him.
I think that's
We can
just a
hear you.
delay. We can hear you.
Okay. What I was gonna say is, like, I was writing that short prequel I was telling you about to Scalpers, and the max word length I think was like 6,000 words, and I was having a hell of a time keeping it to 6,000 words, man. And I kept going, like, I think the first draft was like 8,000 words, and I had to like cut a bunch of stuff and figure out, you know, trim it down and stuff. So short stories aren't always that easy either.
Yeah.
See, that's why I don't fuck with word counts and shit like that usually. Like,
Yeah.
unless somebody approaches me and they're like, "Hey, Aaron, we want to have you in this collection. You know, like, we'd really appreciate if you be in this collection." Or then I might do it, but I don't like proactively, like, even if it's something I think is cool.
Yeah.
If I see a fucking rigid topic or a specific word count, I'm just it just disinterests me because I feel like I'm being put in a box when you do that to
Yeah.
me, and I don't like that. You know, fuck that.
Yeah.
But okay, so go ahead. Were you going to say something,
Look
Carter?
around, like somebody might have heard you say a bad word. Fuck that.
So, all right, we talked a little bit about the size of the story and stuff, and I think that's interesting. You know, so it sounds like general consensus between us is like, you know, do what you feel, but it sounds like, you know, a short story is a nice way to start because you could get that good sense of accomplishment and feel like you did something, and even potentially, you know, if you want to go through the process and do a dry run before you publish something that you feel more strongly about and just understand what's going on, it could be a good thing for you. But ultimately, the ball's in your court, people. You choose your own destiny. But let's talk about formatting for a moment. So once you kind of have an idea of what the story is that you might be putting down, and I think this is a great question, like, as far as how are you going to format the story? What do you want the book to look like? And I ask this because some people will work off of a template. Some people, like Daniel, you work off of Kindle Create, right?
Yeah, I use Kindle Create for everything.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like that's a very user-friendly. I haven't personally used it aside from creating ebooks, but you actually create your paperbacks there too. Is that correct?
That's correct. So Kindle Create is just a program that you download through Amazon, obviously, and you pretty much you take this template, essentially, and you drop your Word document right into it, and it will pretty much make your Word document fit onto a Kindle screen. It will eliminate all the kind of messed up things you have in there. It's very basic looking. So if you guys have ever bought any of my paperbacks or any of my ebooks and stuff, I don't have anything really too fancy in there, but everything is clean and it's organized. There's nothing crazy with spacing or words out of order or anything like that. So Kindle Create kind of takes all the guesswork out of it for you. But again, you get more of a basic looking format. So for me, I don't really mind that because I don't have the time to do any kind of crazy formatting, but it's incredibly user friendly. And you don't get any kind of errors when you upload it into Amazon. And once you upload it into Amazon, it's almost always accepted immediately. So it's definitely a good tool for somebody who is not very computer savvy, like myself, or if you don't have the time, like myself, or you're just looking for something easy to knock out, or, you know, it's definitely a user friendly application to use.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Roland. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I use Kindle Create too. Super easy, like Anya said, user friendly. But I was wondering, Aaron, what do you use? Because I don't know if Kindle Create or if you can use graphics in it. I've never tried that. And I know a lot of your books have a lot of images, which I think that makes the book just feel so much more alive. Daniel, you ever tried to put an image into Kindle Create when you were setting up your format?
No, I've never talked about any interior images because I never really, I never went that route. Like I know Aaron is big on the interior chapter images. I don't usually label my chapters, so I kind of had a hard time with coming up with any kind of images. My new book that's coming out in July, A Gift of Death, that one has the chapters are titled. So I could have done something like that, but I haven't gone that route. But I know I think there is a spot in Kindle Create to add images, but I've never done it.
I know, Daniel, that there is, at least as far as the ebooks go, because I've done it in ebook. I've used Kindle Create in ebook, so I'm assuming they probably have something similar for the paperback version. Maybe we just haven't found it necessary to use it yet. But I think that's great information because I hadn't gone that route. Honestly, I did at first I was just fucking formatting shit myself, bare bones, which was fucking dumb. It took tons of extra time. Shit would be off and headers and footers. And I can tell you guys do not want to fucking be playing around with headers and footers and page numbering for 5 hours. That's the type of shit I was doing when I was doing my first book. And I don't think that I necessarily, I did learn a lot through the frustration. I did. But in the long run, there's a template that you can purchase off of, not purchase, you just download them for free right off of Amazon, okay? And they got two different types of they got quite a few different types of templates. So you can pick your book size, for example, right? If you want a 5x8, what I tend to go by is a 5x8 like this.
Yeah, me too.
Majority of my books are in that size. I like it. I think it's nice and compact and not too bulky. But I am recently doing a larger one with Nightmare Nirvana. So you'll have a variety of sizes that you can choose from. And then you can download templates with no sample content or with sample content. I recommend downloading a template with sample content. And what it does is it just puts it'll set up a title page for you, a copyright page, a dedication, table of contents, and then boom, all these different chapters, right? It gives you 10 sample chapters. And so what you do is you just go in and where it says chapter 1, you type the name of your chapter, or if you're just doing numbering, you leave it. And then underneath you can sort of just, you delete the sample content. It just says insert text here for a couple pages. But it's giving you an idea of what the book should look like. You know what I mean? So, and from there, when you have it, when you're building it in Microsoft Word, and that's actually running into the next question. So let's add this right in with the formatting, right? What program or app are you going to use to write and format your story? I use Word. I'm a big fan of Word. Like you, Daniel, you type it right in Kindle Create. Is that correct?
No, so I actually go through three different things. So I generally type everything in Google Docs. If you haven't used Google Docs is great. It's web-based. It's based off of your email. So if you create a Gmail account and in the top right corner, you'll see, I think it's 9 little dots, something along those lines. You can open that up and you go down to the Docs section. And it's just like Microsoft Word, but it's web-based. And the great thing about it is it auto-saves. And I know with Microsoft Word, it kind of has an auto-save feature as well. But Google Docs is great because since it is web-based, if you're away or something like that, or you want to check something out on your phone, you can pull it up just through your Gmail account. I then back everything up through Microsoft Word. So I'll copy and paste it into Word. And then when I'm done, everything is edited. Then I take that final edits, and then I throw that into Kindle Create. and Kindle Create does all the formatting for me.
See, quick question. I'm just curious if you've run into this though with Google Docs, because I have with Word, because I also type directly into Word, and I have the autosave on, so it saves to my OneDrive and all that. So I'm not that worried about losing anything. I have the backup and stuff on it, but I have had issues where I was like out and there was no internet, and I was writing and thought it was saving to my computer, and then went to go open the file later, and everything I had written when there was no internet was missing. So I wonder if you were in Google, like if you're in Google Docs and you're writing and then suddenly the internet goes out, you know what I mean? Like, are you not, have you ever tried to use Google Docs and like the internet went out or something on you?
Yeah, so my other computer that I used to have, it had shitty internet, so it would constantly go in and out. So with Google Docs, when it starts to internet goes out, it says you're in offline mode and it's saved locally. So I assume it's saved somewhere in the computer. I've never had the issue. The internet's always come back on. So I assume that kind of like Word, it probably has that autosave feature built in somewhere into the hard drive. But
Yeah.
I know that if I lose the internet, whatever I'm typing, I'll just copy and paste it and go over to Word. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but I'm so used to using Google Docs now, and I like the convenience of it. So I kind of just go with that for now. And like I said, I'll transfer stuff into Word.
I've thought about doing
back and
Google
forth.
Docs just because you can also use your phone to do it too. So I mean, if you're out and you come up with some ideas for your chapter and stuff, and you just want to do it straight from your phone, you can go right into your Google Docs and do it like that.
The other advantage I find with Google Docs is when it comes to the editing process. You can go on your drive and everything like that, and you can share your certain information as like edit only, read only. There's some other options in there. So if you want to share it with your editor, you can literally go over the text document together at the same time, and they can be reading it along with you. They can do almost like live edits on there. They can send you stuff back and forth. So if you were to co-write something with someone, Google Docs are probably one of the easiest things, because you can just save it to a common email, and you both can open it whenever you want and just start writing. So rather than having me to email it to you, you could just say, hey, I'm done, go on the Docs, and I could go on there, find it, and then start writing my portion as well.
Wait, what are you guys writing?
No, we're not writing anything to say. Yeah, you're going to get people fucking up in arms.
So I write directly into Microsoft Word, and then I use Vellum, which sounds similar kind of, I guess, to Kindle Create, but Vellum is not free. Vellum costs like a little over $200, I think. But man, I swear by that program. Vellum has saved me so much time and energy and so much headaches. You pay it's a one-time fee, so you pay $200-something for it. But then all you need to do in your Word document is set up your chapter headings. You don't even need to put a title of the book, as long as you're saving it as your title, whatever. Put in your chapter headings, and that's it. And then upload it in Vellum, and it creates the table of contents for you, creates a title page. You can include the copyright page and the dedication page and all that. Yeah. You can easily put in little images, like in my motorcycle club books. I have the colors, that's the logo on their cut, on their vest, on every chapter. So chapter 1 has the logo. It just looks really cool. And then I've seen one of my books has like a little shark on every chapter, because it's a shark shifter book, that kind of thing. So it's super easy to do. And then what's so cool about it is when you go to I can't remember what what it's called, render or whatever the option is on there.
It's generate.
Does it generate? Okay.
Yeah.
Creates a version for every fucking ebook you can think of. I mean, it's got Kobo. It creates a folder for you for Kobo, Google Play, Barnes and Noble, Nook, Apple, generic regular EPUB, Amazon Mobi, and then you choose the size that you want of your paperback. I do mine. Most of mine are in 6x9. And then as soon as you choose the size, it will create that paperback version for you too, that you just upload into Amazon later. Wow. So I mean, it literally, you pay for it once, but then all the updates and all that shit are free, and they're pretty good about keeping up with the changes and stuff with all the different sites. I think Amazon's doing away with .mobi, and they're going to EPUB or something soon, and I got a message from them about that. So
is that a Mac only program now, Vellum?
Well, that's a good point. I think I've heard someone Someone told me one time she was using it for Windows, so I think there is a Windows version.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
100%.
I don't think.
Yeah,
I think
mostly
people are doing it like via parallel, maybe Carver. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't know, because I was looking at it. I wanted it for, because remember we talked about it. Because
Yeah.
I
I
had
thought
looked
you were
at
doing
it.
it.
Yeah, I am. But I had looked at it like years ago, and I was like, man, this looks fucking awesome. And then I realized it was Mac only, and I was like, oh man, do I want to fucking bounce back and forth? Like, because I was writing on a Windows. But like you said, all those benefits, it's too easy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to fucking, because what I do is when I'm writing in Word, I'm crafting my paperback there. Like, all the details that you guys, any of you have read my books, like, you know, with the images or different page breaks, there, like, I kind of try to do different unique stuff in there sometimes. And it's like, that is just the paperback version that I'm writing. But then when it goes into Valium, I don't use the paperback feature in Valium. I just do all the digital conversion. Yeah. And it's like you said, I can create an ebook in like 30 minutes, it feels like.
Well, I can tell you because, you know, I'm going wide, and I went wide once before and chicken shitted out on it. I told you guys about that. But I tried once before, and there used to be a website called Pronoun that was kind of like Draft to Digital and stuff where you could upload your book through them and get to, you know, to all the other wide sites easily. But you still had to like format your book for Barnes and Noble, format it for Google. And I remember wanting to pull my fucking hair out because it was like just little stupid differences that like Barnes and Noble wanted something a little different from what Amazon wanted. And I couldn't, you know, you had to, like, even the way you like saved your file names and shit like that had to be a certain way and stuff like that. And I remember going through all of it and just being so pissed by the end. Like, man, it was just such a pain in the ass. And with Vellum, like, that's it. You put your Word document in there and it does it all for you. You have the format you need for every ebook there is. So,
and I think it's important. It's important to say, right, that, I mean, I suppose you could write a book in Valium if you wanted to, or Valium rather.
You can.
But I don't. I mean, you could use that as a primary app. But I think for me, I'm a Microsoft Word guy. I'll probably just keep using that only because of how I format my paperbacks, and I go more paperback to digital, you know, because if I'm formatting it along the way, I'm saving time. You know, I've already got the template and I'm building in my, and that's another thing. Like if you guys want to build in like cool fucking fonts, you know what I mean? You want like something unique. You want some fucking gore for your words. You want something that looks scary. You know, that's all at your control when you're building it in Word with, you know, with the Amazon template. Because you could go to DaFont or any of those sort of font sites, and there's a lot of awesome fonts that don't have any sort of royalties associated or fees. But I will say one thing. With fonts, you want to be careful because you can get a certain font and you can be like, man, this is fucking perfect, and I've got my book all perfectly formatted, right, like with that font. And then when I go to print it and send it over into KDP, I go and look at the proof, and there's fucking blank spaces wherever that font is, or there's and it just means that the font, even if you've embedded the font, sometimes they just do not translate. So it's a good thing to check that early.
Yeah.
What about you, Roland?
One of the things I was going to say with Vellum, as far as like writing directly in it, you can. But one thing you got to be really careful with on that, if anyone's some people may be using that and not even realize this, so it's probably a good point to mention, because I know a couple of authors that this has happened to, and God, I hope it doesn't happen to me, but Vellum allows you to easily, like on the left-hand side, there'll be a list of all your chapters, and you can easily grab one and drag and drop it somewhere else. Like if you decide you wanted chapter 4 to be where chapter 2 is, you grab it and move it, and it will renumber all your chapters. So what's happened a couple of times is authors have accidentally done that and not realized it, like somehow just kind of hit their mouse or something and picked up a chapter and moved it, and then it like renumbered them, and they published the book and found out that, like, you know, a while after, like it took a reader to say, hey, something's weird with the book, you know, like this doesn't make sense, or, you know, and then they went and looked and said, holy shit, like my chapters, how did that happen, you know? and it's because of that drag and drop feature. So,
well, the one thing
I don't know why they haven't fixed it yet. It would just be smart if it would at least say like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" You know.
Oh, yeah.
I may actually write and see about that, like why they don't just have that option, to say like, "Are you sure you want to move this chapter before you?" So because it's an awesome program, but man, that would really fuck you up. So I hope it never happens to me. But damn.
I always have to get a paperback proof. Even if I book the proof on Amazon, I have to order a paperback.
Yeah.
For me personally, once everything's formatted and I hit print and I get that paperback proof, then I can go through that and I can mark that up. I have all proofs of my books that I take a red pen to, and I just, some things look different on the page. And like Aaron said, with the fonts, certain things don't translate over, or you have a weird chapter break or something like that. So after you're done formatting, it looks great on a computer. I highly recommend take the time, spend a couple bucks, get a proof copy in.
Yeah.
But Roland, what do you use? Besides Kindle Create?
No, yeah. I mean, I type everything up in Word, and then I just use the Kindle Create. That's been the easiest for me so far. But hearing you guys talk about all these there's the options out there for people who are wanting to write. So I'm gonna check out Vellum because that seems like a good option. But right now, just using Word.
Have you guys used Scrivener at all? Anybody use Scrivener?
No, I've heard of it though. But
I downloaded. They do like a 30-day free trial, and I downloaded it, and it's not bad, but there definitely is a learning curve to it, and I'm fucking lazy when it comes to this stuff. I'm set in my ways with what I like to use, but for somebody who's a little more tech savvy, who has time to figure it out, Scrivener seems like it's definitely a viable program, and that's available. I have a regular Windows-based computer, so that was available for that. I don't have a Mac or anything like that. So
there's a new one out that's supposed to be very similar to Vellum, but it's for Windows and Mac, and I can't remember the name of it. There was mentioned the other day in that Wide for the Wind group. But I think it has, because it's so new. Obviously there's all those little quirks and issues people are having with it. But I think it costs less than Vellum, and it's for Mac and Windows. And it sounds like it's pretty cool. It's kind of an all-inclusive program that does pretty much everything for you. I'll try to see if I can.
All right. Well,
see if I can find the name of it.
While you're looking that up, let me recap a little bit real quick here. So guys, it sounds like for the most part, it's Word based on what we're using, and then Daniel's using Chrome. Now, those are the actual direct entry where we're putting our first words, right?
yes.
When we talk about Vellum and when we talk about Kindle Create, that is our finished product or close to it being transferred into these programs to generate the digital books. So don't get it confused. We're not recommending that you write a story in Vellum or that you write a story in Kindle Create. On this podcast, it sounds like it's between Word, and then Daniel also likes Google Chrome. But what I would say too is think about, are you going to be writing a paperback? If you are, go ahead, pick up a paperback from something respected. You know what I mean? Because you might have a collection of books from different independent presses. Make sure it's somebody that you respect, or maybe even a major publisher. You got a couple of those books on your shelf. Take a look at those. Look at how the headers are. Look at where the page numbers are, the style, the design. Determine if you want to write if you want to be publishing in paperback. And if so, I strongly recommend downloading the Amazon template. You could just simply put into Google Amazon paperback template, and it's going to come back to a KDP page, and it'll give you a list of the different book sizes, and it's like, what size book do you want your template for? Go ahead and click it, download it, and go to the English language to open it up. And I think that'll give you a good start. And then, we're kind of ready now to talk about the actual writing. So we're in our app, we're in Microsoft Word or Chrome. We kind of understand the length of the story, or sort of like what we're going for, and how we want to format it, whether we want to use a template or just kind of type it in there. And now we're going to talk. Go ahead, Carver, because I'm setting us up to move into sort of talking about writing, but let's cap this off because you were looking something up, right?
Yeah, I found the name of that other program. If anybody wants to look it up, like I said, it's so new that I think there's some quirks and stuff with it, but I think it costs less, and it's Mac and Windows based. It's Atticus, Atticus, is the one I've seen people talking about lately. So that might be worth checking out.
Yeah, maybe they watch a video on it. You know what I mean? Check your reviews, check your peer reviews.
It may end up being better than Vellum. Who knows? I mean, just gotta, once they've figured out those quirks and stuff. I mean, but
yeah, the great thing about a lot of those programs and stuff like Scrivener, and that's really the one I'm familiar with, was that there's a lot like tutorials on YouTube. So a lot of these programs, you'll open it up and you'll see a million fucking tabs, and you're like, I'm overwhelmed. I have no idea what any of this does. You can just simply go on YouTube and just type in like a Scrivener tutorial, and you'll have somebody who's smarter than you walking you through a tutorial on how to use it and to get your money's worth out of it. Because a lot of the times people get some of these programs and they use the basic functions of it, and they're wasting their money because they could be doing that with a free app like Kindle Create, and you're just doing the same thing on like Vellum where it's expensive. So definitely YouTube is a huge resource for any of this stuff.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, like there is, even though the how you say the easiness of in usability of these applications are pretty similar, like Kindle Create and Vellum. The one big difference with Vellum is that it's going to give you files not just for Kindle but for all the other places. So like while they may be kind of the same, if you're looking to have a wide variety of access via those other outlets, it could be cool. But to your point, Daniel, watch the fucking videos. I agree. And I think would you guys say, like, is there anything else that you guys want to say before we get ready to start actually talk about the writing that we're about to do? Because I feel like we got the app, we kind of know the direction, right?
Yeah. No, we're good.
I think we're good. I think we kind of beat that up pretty good.
Okay. All right. Well, if you guys have questions, written and read podcast at gmail.com. Feel free to send them our way. But I think this next question is hugely important. What is the purpose of your story? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? I mean, I would say, well, here, why don't I give it to you guys? I've been talking a lot. Why don't I give it to you guys to actually kind of tell me about what you guys kind of see as far as purposes of your stories. Maybe you could give us an example of one of your stories. Like what was the purpose of Billy Silver, Daniel, to you? Like what was the purpose of that story?
A couple things. So like we often talk about like the extreme horror and splatterpunk, and sometimes some of these stories, like mainly the extreme horror aspect, is just that over the top kind of craziness. But I kind of think like the splatterpunk thing, and I would consider Billy Silver splatterpunk because it deals on a societal kind of thing, drug addiction and prostitution. So the main thing in that story, what I was kind of going for was just that, without spoiling too much, was the fact that these addictions that people have can kind of take over your life and lead you down a dark path. And sometimes, in order to try to dig yourself out of this hole, you dig yourself even deeper. And the three of you have read it, so you guys can kind of know what I'm talking about. And I think that a decent amount of our listeners have probably read it as well. So that's what story, what I was going for. But at the end of the day, like, we're all storytellers. So my main goal with my stories is to entertain. Yeah. You could write a great story that has great societal, contributions, and hey, it's got the greatest message in the world. But if it's fucking boring, nobody's gonna want to read it. So I think that you got to find your own reasons, right? So my reason for that one was just to kind of shed a little light on opiate addiction and to entertain people. And I think it's done that because I have had people message me privately about it, sharing some of their personal stories, which I appreciate. And I think that that was my reasoning for it. The other ones were kind of just fun to do. There was really no reason. Well, entertainment,
right? Like, so
yeah.
I'll pick up a little bit off of it, and then you guys can also weigh in. But I think entertainment, like you said, That's big. But for me, I like evoking an emotional reaction. That is always a goal of mine, and something that I don't try to dream up things to evoke a reaction. I just hope that the way that the story is crafted, that you'll get that response. Like somebody told me recently that they cried at the end of Yellow. That's fucking huge. You know what I mean? Like that's a big deal for me. Somebody told me, I've had multiple people talk about the slob making them physically gag, like physically. And I just think that, if you can make someone emotional, right? Good, bad, indifferent. Some people like those bad emotions too. Like that ties into the entertainment part of it, right? So for me, I agree with you. Entertainment, and then I like to evoke an emotional reaction. I like to put a piece of myself in my stories somehow. It's usually not a large piece. It's usually sprinkled. And then I love to horrify. I think just making people dread a story or creeped out by it, whatever it might be. I love all that stuff. What about you, Roland?
So with Abortion, I wanted to do something that nobody would ever think in a million years would happen. And so that was the reason behind writing that one. And of course to entertain. It touched on a subject that was super taboo. I don't think too many people write about it, and for good reasons, because I got bashed a little bit for doing it, but mostly to entertain and do something completely unexpected. I think with Payback as a Witch, I just wanted to have fun with that one. I like witches, I like spells, I like Halloween, and even though it doesn't have anything to do with Halloween, the witches and the spells was what I wanted to primarily focus on and make those things entertaining for readers, which I think it did. It crossed over and people seem to enjoy it.
You hit on something right there, Roland. Like, I think too that is entertain yourself, right? Like writing what makes you happy, and then you're going to be so passionate about it that the product that you're putting out, you love it so much that usually that will translate, and people can see that how much you love that. Even if it's something that they're not into, right? But they see the way that you craft it and take care of it, and I think it shows through. What about you, Carver?
I was going to say exactly what he just said. What Roland just said was when I first started writing horror, dark fantasy-ish stories, I wrote the Edge of Reflection series, which I have 4 books out in that. I haven't written the 5th. There'll probably be about 8, and I'm thinking of rewriting them in a different point of view. But I wrote those originally as screenplays, and I wrote them because there wasn't anything like that I was finding. Like, they're very action-packed with weird, twisted kind of creatures and stuff, kind of like urban fantasy, but not. I kind of compare it a little bit to Sin City. You've seen the movie Sin City?
Oh, great.
It's just got all these. There's parts of that movie you're like, where the fuck did that come from? It's just weird shit in that movie, So that was the kind of stuff I liked, and I was like, I'm just not finding books that really. There's a lot of fantasy with ogres and elves and high fantasy and stuff like that, but not quite what I was wanting to read. So that was originally why I wrote it. Now there is a lot more of the grim dark and stuff like that out there, but that was originally why I started writing stuff to begin with. So a lot of it is for me to entertain myself and to entertain others, obviously. But I was going to say, I don't go into books with any theme in mind, really. I don't go in with, wanting to teach a lesson and stuff, because that's brought up a lot with writing. What was the theme, or what were you trying to accomplish, with that story? And most of the time I don't figure that out until the book's done, or I'm halfway through it. Like with Grad Night, it was about students getting revenge on their teachers. I didn't have plans to tell these students' backstory and why they were doing what they were doing, like their motivators and stuff like that, till I was writing it. And then I was like, damn, it was just coming to me. I'm like, every student involved in this party that was getting revenge on these teachers had their own reason for doing it, no matter how twisted and fucked up their psyche was. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense sometimes, but to them it did. and to them it was a good reason for what they were doing, you know. So yeah, so I just wanted to say, like, I don't always, that happens a lot to me. I don't realize there is a theme to the story until, you know, I'm almost done with it, or I am done with it. So
yeah, I think you got to be careful with that stuff too. You know, like you start fucking preaching in a book, and people can see you. It's one thing if a character is a certain way because they're that way, right?
Yeah.
It's another thing if you're just weaving in these elements of your own beliefs and trying to convey some fucking veiled political message or whatever it might be. That's a fucking huge turnoff for me. When I'm reading the book, man. Oh, it's the worst, dude. When I'm reading a book, I'm reading it to fucking forget about that shit. You know what I mean? Like, and to be in the fantasy and to be engaged in the story. So, sure, you're passionate about your beliefs. I think probably all four of us are in some way or another, but we're not fucking stupid either. You're not going to see us on social media fucking standing on a high horse telling you we know everything and you don't know shit. You know, that's a great way to get yourself fucking ended. You know, so.
But you know what?
I think it's kind of cool that you mentioned that, because today, I know this will air after the fact, but Drew Stepek from Godless reached out and said, "Hey, I'm doing a religious writings week, I think is what it's called, or religious writers week or something like that." And he knew I consider myself a man of faith. I pray, I talk to God and stuff like that. And so he reached out and said, you know, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this and stuff?" And I said, I definitely do. I think it's awesome. What I didn't want to happen was people to think that I'm a preachy writer. Like, I don't go into the books preaching religion to you. You know what I mean? Like, in my books, good usually wins out over evil. I personally do believe in God and stuff like that, but I'm not writing books. I'm not writing Ted Dekker books or Frank Peretti, you know, like the horror authors that are considered religious fiction. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it's different from that. I'm not going into the book preaching to you why you should be going to church and stuff like that. I just kind of believe that good usually beats evil. So, and but I thought it was pretty cool that he was doing that, because he knew, you know, we had talked a little bit about Godless and stuff like that, and how we, you know, I don't want to say too much. But Drew even mentioned it today on Facebook, how, you know, he appreciates my beliefs and stuff like that, and that's kind of one of the reasons he did it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, but sometimes when you're writing, also, like with Abortion, I had to write it from the little guy's point of view. So yeah, it may have. I didn't think I seemed preachy, because quite frankly, I don't have. But somebody did. Somebody ripped me a new one and said I was beating the reader over my head with my personal beliefs. I don't even have an opinion on it. You know, I'm not the one who can have an abortion.
I don't know, it's pretty clear you don't like raccoons.
I don't like raccoons. But no, I mean, I wasn't even trying to write like that, but I had to say certain things and guide the story a certain way, because it was told from its point of view. I didn't say if it was a boy or a girl. And I think that just comes across sometimes in books, but readers take it one way when it's really not meant to be that way, because it's all subjective.
Yeah, and I didn't think you
recently.
Oh, sorry.
What'd you say?
I was just saying, I just recently read Abortion, and I liked it a lot.
Oh,
I
cool.
found it kind of endearing, sort of. I don't know how to. I can't say much again without giving stuff away, but I just felt like it was touching, man. It was actually a sick, fucked up book. It was sweet at the same time.
Yeah, and I think, Roland, there's crazies, right, that are people that, those are the extremists, right? They're finding things in your work that they can nail you to the cross with, so to speak, right? But I think what I was trying to say is more like people that, like you I know you didn't go into that book saying, "Oh, I'm going to, you know, weave in all these elements that make it seem like this." You don't give a fuck. It was just what it was. But I think there are some people that do try to weave their beliefs in, to, like, you know, sprinkle something in is fine, I think. But if you're fucking beating somebody over the head with it, it's going to turn people off. You're alienating a portion of your audience, regardless of what you think. You know.
Yeah.
You got it with politics. Just the character will be a Republican or a Democrat, one or the other, and they'll just constantly slam through the entire book, the opposing side, and it's just like, all right, we get it. You're of that belief, but all right, enough is enough. You know.
Well, that's the other thing too, is writing things that are based on the character. Like if you have a character who is, racist or sexist or whatever, for them to say certain things and certain terminologies fits their character. And the same thing with a political affiliation. If you're writing something, and somebody leans hard one way, they're going to say things in a negative light about the other side because that's part of their character. If you have somebody breaking that character and going beyond that fourth wall and just saying things on your beliefs as the author and not as the character, then yes, you're using your writing to kind of preach. But again, if you have a character and it fits their character, then it's the character.
Precisely. Like if you're writing in the first person, right? That's the character. If you're writing in the third person and you're weaving that shit into like descriptions and stuff, you're just doing it to do it. You know what I mean? It has nothing. But like you said, if it's the character, like to me, I don't even think I've really had any characters in my book so far that have like some firm political side. I mean, if I do something someday like that, then sure, I'll probably incorporate something like that. But that stuff tends to fucking turn me off just because of how regurgitated it is in society. It's like nobody wants to fucking hear it, dude. You know?
We hear it every day. It's like it's force-fed down our throat when we turn on the TV, like constantly.
You can't get away from it.
It's ridiculous. Fuck, and Hey, Aaron, you said you put a little bit of your stuff in yourself in your stories. Like, what's something that you put in that was specifically something you like, or that little piece of you? I'm just curious.
Oh, okay. Let me say, let's see. So in Dark Assembly, the story is, what is it? Population Control, the second story. That's about like a sort of fucking punk rock character that is just broke as fuck, and they do shows and they live in this shitty house, and it's like he's going to try out like a male birth control method and let them experiment on him essentially so that he can get a few bucks. And he's like literally on the toilet, like trying to take a shit, and
that's
like
totally you.
Yeah. No, so like that one it ties back into all like the time I spent like doing music stuff for a while. Like I'd spend like close to a decade with my buddies doing like different fun music stuff, and we actually all bought a house that was like a real fucking piece of shit, and it was like the door was open for anyone, like people getting shot in the head at the gas station down the street. It was just a terrible place.
Like your outsiders.
Yeah, we moved in, and then you could fucking hear us like playing and shit. Like in the attic is where we constructed the studio, and like there was this big diesel black dude that was our neighbor. Like he was a trucker and shit, and like I'd see him outside with like a blowtorch melting the ice in the winter, and I'm like, yo, this feels like a fucking horror movie. Like I'm scared to death of this man. And then he'd be like, "That's y'all playing up there?" And then he's like, and then he ended up actually like liking us and shit. And he would always like, but it was a creepy neighborhood. And so like all that stuff, like a lot of times environment, I like to take environment from my experiences too and sort of paint it in there. Because if you're telling it from your experience, it's going to feel real, I feel,
Yeah.
I agree.
Write what you know kind of thing.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Exactly.
I think I've tried to do that in a few of my books too, but it was just like very subtle stuff. I think in Unbortion, there she was talking about how much she loved Kate Bush, and like that's my favorite all-time singer, Kate Bush.
I swear, when I was reading it, that was my first thought. I bet Roland loves Kate Bush. I bet he listens to it in the shower.
I've never even heard of Kate Bush. Who is Kate Bush?
Oh, I'm about to hang up. I quit. I'm out of reading it. No.
You the one that sings the "Fuck You Very Much" song? Is that Kate Bush?
Mm-mm. So
Roland,
she
can you
sings.
sing us a little bit? Can you sing us a little,
Yeah,
just so I
of
can?
course.
Recommend?
Running up that hill. You don't want me to.
Come on.
So she's actually a singer from the 80s. Like, she's iconic. So if you ever get a chance to check her out, definitely. Her music, it spans decades for me. So, but that was something I threw in. And then I also mentioned something about, in Payback as a Witch, he wore a black T-shirt with a Susie and the Banshees logo. Again, I love Susie and the Banshees. So I do what you do, and try and put little pieces of myself in the story.
Pop culture reference. That stuff's
Lily
fun.
Allen, Kate Bush, Lily Allen. Yeah, they're similar.
Oh yeah, I think of two different people. There, check out Kate Bush.
I'll throw that right in the Spotify mix.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Oh, the shower. sing to Kate Bush.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're doing pretty good, guys. I think we got time to hit one more point on our topic for this episode. I have a horrible idea, and then I think we'll probably be at the midpoint of this particular topic. So it looks like this is going to be a two-parter. I'm going to go ahead and get into this one other question, and then Carver, maybe we can try and take a couple other questions from the mailbag. How's that sound?
Sweet.
All right, so I think that was good conversation around purpose of the story, though, guys. Thank you, everyone. That was real good. I think it's hopefully will get people thinking, what is the purpose of their story? So, our last question regarding the topic today is: what kind of story do you want to write? Who is your target audience? Genre? Do you want a world where anything is possible, such as like a bizarro world? Or do you want something that's like gritty and realistic? And I think maybe we could talk about the pros and the cons of each. So I'll give a couple little things, and then you guys can give a couple. Like for me, and for the most part, I like my stories to be gritty and realistic. But I've also written 2 books that could probably be considered more on the bizarro side.
Oh, I think we lost Aaron.
Oh, you're back, Aaron.
Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was just going to give a couple of little things as far as what story do I want to write, what genre. I think
That's just me.
This is our
are we all
technical difficulties.
Are we all cutting out?
Remix!
All right, go ahead. Why don't Daniel? Why don't you give a couple of things then?
All right. So like Aaron was trying to say before he forgot to pay his internet bill, I like the gritty and realistic. That's just kind of the stuff I like to read. I don't mind the bizarro kind of weirdo out of nowhere stuff, but if I'm going to read something that's in a fantastical world, I'm just going to read fantasy or science fiction. So when I'm writing my horror, and those of you that have read it, I do have obviously a supernatural element in all of my work, but I feel like the parts that are not supernatural, and even some of the supernatural stuff, I like it to feel realistic. I like the violence to be realistic. I like the death scenes to be realistic. And if you've read any of my stuff, some of it's very highly sexual. I like that stuff to be somewhat realistic. So for me, the gritty and realistic is definitely the way I go. The cons of that, it can definitely turn some people off because, like we've talked about, people read mainly for entertainment. And if they've had a traumatic experience in their life, they may not want to read something that is realistic in that, graphic in nature. They may want something that's a little more comedic and something that's more fantastical with the bizarro realm, and something that has a little more comedy to it that's not as graphic and descriptive, because you don't want somebody to read something and be upset by your work. You want to enjoy your work. So definitely that the gritty and realistic can definitely have some cons for certain people that have had traumatic experiences in their past.
I think it can also kind of like limit you a little bit too, right? Like obviously in a bizarro thing, like you could write a story about an in-depth story about a ghost or going to hell, right? And paint these creatures that have never existed before. Like I'm writing a piece on a guy who goes to hell right now, and I'm just finding that, wow, there's so many things I can do when writing in this particular style that you can't do in the normal realm. And it's also a checks and balance system too, right? Like, if you're going to write about something, you better fucking have some idea about what you're writing about, or people are going to sort of pick you apart and be like, oh, well, that doesn't really seem realistic or fit in. Like another thing I'm writing takes place in 1961. So it's like, that's a period piece. I love period pieces. I've never gone...
A lot of research, huh?
Well, it is a lot of research, but it's not daunting. It's actually like stuff that I end up being like, oh, this is cool. Like, I didn't know this, or and you don't have to hammer the period down their throat. You know what I mean? Like, but you're obviously not going to be working with a cell phone then. You got to just not make stupid mistakes. Like, obviously there's certain technology that didn't exist. You got to have grasp of it. So
yeah, those period pieces are they're fun to do and they're rewarding, but they are difficult because I have a book coming out in November, and part of it is set during the Holocaust. So it is set in Poland, in concentration camps, and I had to research a lot of that stuff, like how the Jewish people were rounded up, how they were transported there, how the guards spoke, how the people acted, what they were fed, certain aspects of their living conditions and all of that stuff. And I learned a lot through it, but I wanted to make sure that I did the story justice and that I had my research down. So it is very, very realistic, and there's definitely, like we talked about earlier, the emotional stuff. I'm either going to get some fucking really nasty emails or some really like weepy emails where people are like crying about it. It's going to be one way or the other. So I'm hoping it hits the emotional chord, but it's definitely a realistic piece, and it's a period piece. So we'll see how it plays out.
Sounds like it's going to be a good one, man. Because whenever you put that kind of research into a book and you learn different stuff, like I've written some Vietnam War characters, and I found that to be very interesting. There's a lot of really cool stuff, man. It's fun to go back and learn about eras when you weren't in there, or stuff that you remember as a kid, and have like a nostalgia for. This shit's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron, when you wrote, is it called In the Hands of Heathens? Didn't you say you had to do a lot of research on, was it Madagascar?
Yeah, In the Hands of the Heathens, it was a ton of research on Madagascar, because really, probably half of the book takes place there. Maybe a little less than half. But yeah, a lot of it is like, okay, what do I need to do to go to Madagascar? Like, what's going to be realistic? These college students are going there to do their thesis. It's like, I want to mention, the type of fucking shots they would need to get, and, stuff that, precautions they would need to take. Just sort of the area, the tribe is actually like a real tribe in real life, although I've sort of twisted it a little bit to fit the story.
Yeah.
But also the animals that are in the jungle, you know what I mean? And the animal that they're studying, the I had to do a bunch of research on that, the folklore around it. Incredibly fun, though. I found myself just being excited and like, oh man, there's all this cool, superstitious stuff about this. And I love that superstitious stuff. And it's great because you get to do a sort of a balance of, is this shit real or is this supernatural? It's kind of a reader decides. So, but thanks for asking.
Yeah, but it can be kind of daunting too, to doing that kind of writing because, with me, I tried to do that once before. I haven't really gone too far in the story, but I even wanted to do research on the landscape, what type of trees grew in an area, what type of plants and foliage and underbrush was around. So it's daunting also.
Oh, totally. Because especially if you want to be detailed, and it's like over there, they're staying there too. So it's like you got to kind of figure out all these different, what kind of structure would it be? And I actually try to find images of it so I could visually see the stuff and kind of get it in my head, and then put my spin on it. Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
So Carver, what about you? What do you think about the realistic and gritty as opposed to bizarro? How do you feel about it, and what do you look for in your target audience?
See, I have a hard time with that, man, because I kind of bounce around all over the place. You know, I do have the 3 pen names, but even under Carver Pike, I told you with that Edge of Reflection series, I always had a hard time trying to figure out how to label it because you're forced to put labels on your work. I mean, obviously, when you upload it to Amazon, you have to pick the fucking genres and you have to pick, you know, the keywords and stuff like that. And I had such a hard time with it because I kind of felt like it was sort of urban fantasy, but at the time, urban fantasy it was basically Twilight, so it was like sparkling vampires and werewolves and shit like that. And mine wasn't like that. Like, there's like sick ass characters in it, but they're not werewolves, they're not vampires, they're like this crazy ass. It's a mirror world, so it's just got all kinds of crazy creatures and demons and shit in it. So it wasn't quite urban fantasy. It wasn't high fantasy because it wasn't dragons and elves and, you know, and dwarves and things like that. And so I would say now it might see even grimdark is. I'm still a little confused on what grimdark is, but grimdark is becoming more popular. But grimdark seems to me more like it's assassins and shit like that in a dark fantasy kind of land, like a Brent Weeks style. I love Brent Weeks. So that'd probably be grimdark.
Joe Abercrombie is the fucking man in grimdark. I think his name on Twitter is like Lord Grimdark or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Probably. Like, I know that. Yeah, I have a Blade itself. I haven't read it yet.
So fucking good.
I love that kind of stuff. So, and so I'm still a little bit like I don't really know what to call it. So I've had issues with that. But another issue I've had is like a lot of my horror has very graphic sex in it because I did come from the erotica scene and stuff at the beginning. And I've mentioned before, to me, the con is that some people are really into that, and then they might pick up like Grad Night where there's no sex in it. I mean, it's just a story. Scalp had one scene that was kind of, I think the guy's going down on the girl, and that's about it for that book. I mean, there wasn't like a lot of sex to it.
Yeah. Dinner and a show.
Do it.
It's tough for me. I write kind of a little bit of everything. Like I have an idea for a story about a father-son on a trip, you know, and this creature and stuff, and that will definitely not have any sex in it. So I mean, I'm kind of trying to warn people. There goes the incest for this episode.
Yeah, there you go. What's our hour mark? Where are we at?
Daddy,
for the incest?
what's that monster? It's a one-eyed Willy, son. But all right,
it's a purple-headed yogurt slinger. It's gonna get you.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
no, but. So I've been trying to mention in the blurb whether it's got extreme violence and sex in it and stuff like that, but not everything that I'm going to write will even be extreme horror. So, I mean, some of it's not, you know?
Carver, I heard a rumor, though. I just want you to either confirm it or dispel it real quick.
Yeah.
Can you? All right. I heard that you're finally going to get into the swag game and start giving things out, but I heard you were giving only penis straws away. Is that true?
I've given penis straws. I've done that.
All right. Well, if you have extras, send them out with your books.
And your fucking cologne. Yeah. All right, but guys, hold on. I gotta put the brakes on because we're at an hour 17 right now. But I don't think we're done with this question. I think when we come back next episode, let's talk a little bit. Let's restart with this question. Talk a little bit more about target audience and genre, and maybe some of the pros and cons. And we have a few other questions that are in this topic in the vein of, I have a horrible idea. Now, but we need to go into the mailbag now, right? I think let's try and work in at least a mailbag question before we get to our reader recognition.
Cool, man. You guys are hitting us with a lot of mailbag questions. So
I love it.
I'm gonna have to actually get a fucking bag. This mug's not gonna cut it from.
Are any of the dick pics in there that were emailed to us or no?
So I pressed send. I didn't mean to press send.
Oh.
I hope they're all from Henrik.
Actually, we just kind of went over this one a little bit. So Andy Carroll asked, as far as page count goes, what are the guidelines and differences between a novelette, novella, and full-blown novel? Thanks, one of your biggest fans, backers, and supporters, Andy. So I went ahead, since I was handwriting this question, and looked it up on Wikipedia because I knew they had the word count down on what exactly is each of them. So I'm going to read to you what it says in Wikipedia, and it is a pretty good guideline to follow, and then we can each weigh in on it, what you guys think. So it says here that a short story is anything from 20 words to 7,500 words. Novelette would be 7,500 to 17,499. Novella would be 17,500 to 39,999, and a novel is 40,000 words or over. So I can tell you, I think for the Splatterpunk, it was 45,000 and higher, right? Was a novel, or was it 40,000?
See, I
thought 50 was the line.
I thought it was, honestly, I thought most novels are 60. But it depends where you look, you know? Like, I feel like it's not like a universal definition of this. But like you said, I think novels 50 at least, maybe 60,000.
Yeah.
But
I think it also goes on the publication you're submitting to as well, because some places will say a novel length work is 60,000 or 75,000. And again, I think genres are specific as well, because in fantasy, you're not writing anything under 100,000 words. Like, that's what they wanted at. I don't think there's really many fantasy novellas out there. But for us in the horror and extreme horror, I think that novella, kind of 15,000 to 40-ish thousand, and then maybe 40 and above you consider a novel. But we're all self-published scrubs, so it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. We just do what the fuck we want.
I follow Brian Keene's newsletter, and he just touched on this the other day because his newer book is like on the shorter side, I think, of novels. And he was saying, and I wish I could remember exactly how he said it, but I think he was getting at that novelette is not really used much anymore. And I think that's kind of true, that you always hear short stories and novellas and novels. I hardly ever hear anyone say they wrote a novelette. No. So I think there's kind of a cutoff somewhere between short story and novella, and they're just kind of being blended. So
yeah.
Have you guys noticed that?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I have books that are around 10,000 word that I would say is probably I'd probably call that a short story, I guess. And then I would say 20,000 and stuff, more like my novellas, 15, 20,000 and stuff. Once I get to around 50,000, I start saying it's a novel. So,
see,
I just call them all books and just call it a day. Here's my new book.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Call it what you will.
What you think it is. Yeah.
It's 2 pages.
Yeah. It's a pamphlet.
First page says fuck, second page says you.
The end.
Yeah.
Can I say that to a few people?
You want to pull another one? Or
I think we got time for.
You guys ready for another one?
Yeah, let's do one. Yeah. Maybe one or two more. We'll see.
Yank another one.
All right, this is from our buddy Mort.
Yo, what up,
Mort says, "Congrats on the great podcast. As a fan, I have a question in 2 parts. Where is too far for you personally?" I don't know if we want. Hold on. I'll read the whole thing and we can decide how we're going to answer. So, where's too far for you personally? And is it wrong for other authors to go there? Me, meaning Mort, he says, I can't do animal torture. I can't detach enough, and it sticks in my head in a very bad way. I think the movie Project X with Matthew Broderick fucked me up for life. So,
all right. I'll go on this first.
What is too far for you, and do you feel like other authors should go there?
I honestly don't think anything is too far, and I think that you right where the fuck you want. It's up to the reader to watch it or to read it. If there are certain things I might not touch on, graphic sex scenes with a child, I definitely won't do. That is 100%. I will not go there. If I have to have something like that to further the story, it will definitely be off camera, we'll say. The animal things, I don't mind having animal killing in my stories if it pertains to the story. It won't just be random violence for no reason, for shock value. But if somebody wants to write something that is really graphically violent against children or something like that, I 100% support your decision to do that. It just might not be for me. I might not read it. I'm certainly not going to go on there and bash you about it. I think that is your right, and fucking do it. Go have at it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really have anything that's probably off topic except for the child porn stuff. That would be uncomfortable to write. And I know for people uncomfortable to read. But if there are authors out there who want to write it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think my whole thing. I mean, what I try to say is, this is writing with no boundaries. So like, I want people to pick up the book and be like, it could go anywhere. Like, I don't fucking know where he's going to go, and that's part of the thrill of it, right? But at the same time, like, if you're just sort of being redundant and writing something over and over, and I feel like it's like a message, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's some kind of fucked up message, it starts to feel more like nonfiction than fiction.
Yeah.
And I think there are certain places, for, I'm not someone who likes banning of books, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But maybe there are some I don't want to get into the whole debate of that, but I'm just going to say, like, maybe there are some nonfiction books that are inappropriate, you know what I mean? And I can understand why people wouldn't want to carry those. But in the realm of fiction, which is what we're talking about, right? Which is what we do, it's fiction. There's no one getting hurt. There's no real people tied into it. It's not like I made a movie and a kid gets abused in the movie and like that child actor actually has to fucking go through that. No, it's not that. It's just the reader, and you have your fucking warning, and if they're reading your shit, it can go anywhere. So they kind of got to just be willing to take that risk. And I don't write detailed child graphic sexual stuff like that, but I do have one story that was about a sadistic pedophile, and in which there is some mutilation of children and a very horrific nature. Right, Roland, you read that, so you know what I'm saying.
You didn't see me just put my head back like, no, I don't talk about the story. Yes. But it was one of the stories that you wrote that stayed with me. Yeah, so you wrote it very well.
No, thank you. But yeah, like I said, like I'm not a huge advocate for that. I don't think it should be something that's like used as a gimmick over and over. But that was what the story was about. The story was about a fucking a dark web event series that involved children, and that was just what it was about, So,
what about you, Carver?
I'm basically with you guys. I mean, same thing. I hate the banning of books and stuff like that, and the fact that what I really hate is books just being yanked down based on keywords and shit like that. I mean, certain words that are being used and the book just fucking disappears, from Amazon and stuff like that.
That fucking blows.
So I do hate that. But I don't know, man. It's like it's a weird fine line for me, because I think if I were reading a book and it was really putting me in the first person of something like a child sex, or even sometimes with like rape scenes and stuff like that, for me personally, it's just hard to read, because especially if it's written where it just seems like it's this person's way of getting over that fantasy rather than going out and
it's gratifying.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, exactly. If it's just like they're putting you in that position so you can see what it's like and feels like and stuff like that. That's just personally something that I couldn't read and I wouldn't be able to write. In some ways, I think that, we always talk about show, don't tell with writing and stuff like that. I think when I've had those characters in books, I tend to switch over to tell rather than show sometimes with that type of stuff. Fade to black, or, it's in the other room or something like that if there was a character doing that kind of stuff. So, but,
see, I'm just like, man, I want to, like there's a pretty famous movie, what is it, a Serbian film.
Serbian film, yeah.
Or like August Underground Mortem. I have a morbid curiosity,
Yeah.
And it's more just like I was talking about the video game Manhunt on my other podcast the other day, and how
it's a good episode.
Super violent it was, right, Daniel? And like there was a quote that one reviewer gave, and they were like, the game almost forces your eyes open in a Clockwork Orange sort of fashion and says, is this what you like? Is this what you really like? You know what I mean? And I think it makes people ask themselves like fucked up questions when they're reading that shit, and like, I don't know, I just think it's creepy, and like it pushes boundaries, but it's not something that I do. I think I only did it in one story. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's got to be a certain place and time for it. And it's actually that story is loosely based off Peter Scully, who was that was like a real thing. sort of that was happening with snuff films with children's in the Philippines.
Wow.
And so it's like loosely based off of a crime documentary, like some of the elements of it, you know, that I just thought was so fucked up. I couldn't believe that they were doing this shit on fucking like the dark web. I was just like, this is insane.
That makes it 10 times more creepy.
It's fucked up, right? But
You want to do another one, or are we on time?
I think we're wrapping up right now. We're at an hour and a half, guys. So, Daniel, well, actually, before we move on real quick, we got, remember, these Written in Red podcast laminated prints with the artwork that we're going to be, it might be a little glary, but you get the idea, that we're going to be all signing and shipping around to each other. And, you know, as you guys continue to submit questions, we'll get some of these raffled off. We'll try to do something fun, you know, and it'll be a cool little keepsake for anyone who enjoys the show.
Yeah.
That's great.
But Daniel, do you want to wrap up with the reader recognition? I think that's how we're going to finish out, right?
Yeah. So, you know, we all decided to do a reader recognition. I think in the last episode we all picked one, but for this one, I'm just gonna touch on one person that who's just been an awesome reader, an awesome fan, I think pretty much for all of us, and that's Donna Latham. She's just a great reader. She will often message me. She just bought a couple of my books recently. Very active on social media. She's always interacting with people. She just seems to have a great outlook and disposition, and I just want to thank her for her support for me, for the indie horror community, and for everyone, just for being a great person. So thank you, Donna, and I hope you continue to enjoy the indie horror. I'll give you a hand for that.
Thank you, Donna.
Donna's great. She just bought a couple of mine too, and I just talked to her the other day. She's a sweetheart. So
Yeah,
thank you, Donna.
Really nice one.
She's bought stuff multiple times from me. She's bought stuff for other people from me.
Yes.
I mean, she goes above and beyond. She tries to surprise other people like that are in the community. It's just really incredible person. And she's funny too. I mean, I put up the post of, I think it was the head in the microwave for the Scary Bastard canvas. So this picture. So I did like a canvas print of this, and I was selling the canvas prints online, which shout out to everyone who bought one. I really appreciate it. But someone was like, how could you hang this in your house though? Like what are you gonna say to your guests? And then Donna just goes, that's why I don't have guests.
Yeah, she just bought a couple of books for some other people through me, and she's funny too because she always recently she's been posting these memes of like these ridiculous birds, and they just say like obscene things like fuck you on them, and it's like these cheery little birds, and it's just these ridiculous comments. So I always get a chuckle out of it whenever I see her post. So yes, Donna, thank you very much for keeping us entertained, and we hope we entertain you, and just keep being a great person and supporting indie horror.
Thank you.
Absolutely. She goes above and beyond, well deserved. And I think we can probably do our plugs just to wrap up real quick. Daniel, since you were given the recognition, do you want to do yours real quick?
Yeah, so Daniel Volpe, you can find me on Facebook at Daniel Volpe, or Daniel J. Volpe is my page. DJ Volpe Author on Instagram. My books are available on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and Kindle. Also on Godless for ebooks. And I still have, I don't know when this will come out, but if you want a signed paperback with some swag, just shoot me a private message, and I'll make sure I get that out to you.
Awesome. Roland, what you got, brother?
Hello. So Roland Bursey, you can find me on Amazon. I have a website, RolandBurseyJr.com. I'm on Godless. I'm on Twitter, OnlyFans.
That a boy.
Hey, go ahead. Whatever I got to do is sell books.
Firing up that helicopter.
So yeah, you know where to find me. Thank you. I'm on Facebook. Send me a message. I love talking to people, and I appreciate you guys, all of you.
Carver.
All right. I'm Carver Pike, and I'm on all the social media sites just as Carver Pike. I think as of today, because the Grindhouse just went wide, I think all my books now are on all Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Amazon, of course, Google Play, Apple, all that stuff, and of course on godless.com. So you can find me any of those places. Aaron.
I am Aaron Beauregard, and you can hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. However, reach out to me directly if you like. I got all kinds of merchandise too, guys. So I've been kind of trying to put out more products because people have been suggesting I do different things. I've got coasters, fucking canvas prints that you can hang on your wall if you want some of that disturbing art that Donna's not afraid or ashamed to hang up. You could you get some of that. My new book, In the Hands of the Heathens, it's is it a supernatural thriller or a slasher? You tell me when you read it. It's for you to figure out. And I think, lastly, I'll just say, I really appreciate you guys coming out and doing this episode. It was a great episode. I'm looking forward to next week, when we kind of...
next week.
Not next week, next episode. When we finish when we finish this topic out. I have a horrible idea. I think we're off to a good start. We'll finish it out, and then we got the whole arc planned out for you guys for self-publishing. So don't go anywhere, and keep it 100% horror.